So this one comes quite highly requested. It's time for us to do the anti-Terry guide. I'm going to give you a bunch of tips for how to beat this man right here. Because I've actually been surprised, like, a lot of people seem to be struggling with Terry. I've had a lot of requests, you know, how do I beat Terry? Where are the gaps in his strings and stuff? Let's start with Terry's normals. So the first thing to mention right up front is that none of Terry's normals are plus on block. Not a single one. This is like an important, just general bit of advice. He's one of those characters that has no, like, naturally plus normals. Now, that's not in itself, like, a disqualifying character trait. Ken is one of the best characters in the game and he has no plus normals. But it's definitely important to know because I see a lot of people, for example, like, if they block Terry's crouch medium punch, they don't take their turn back afterwards. This thing's -1. So that's like the first thing to say. Obviously, he does still have ways to stop you mashing. You know, he can do like chained lights. Obviously, he can do like drive rush to make stuff plus. And he also has quite a few ways of giving himself meaties after knockdowns. So for example, like in the corner, he can do stuff like this. And that's +2. So keep an eye on if the normal is like meaty or whatever. But if he just does it in neutral or as part of a pressure string, you can often just take your turn back after most of his normals. That's the first thing to say. Up next, we're going to talk about this target combo. So this is crouch medium kick, crouch heavy kick. I talked about this a little bit already in my last video, but just in case you missed it, this is basically a free punish. Especially if your character has an EXDP, if you ever block this this target combo from Terry, just do your EXDP afterwards. Because the thing is, if you drive rush cancel this, it's actually impossible for Terry to like jail you. He can't make this a true block string, so if I just set the opponent Terry to mash DP in this string, even if I try and drive rush into a jab as quickly as possible, he can always interrupt. If I try and go into like a special cancel, he can interrupt. I think the only true block string he can do off this is that. But quick burn is also very unsafe and reactable. So if you just mash EXDP, it will cover for everything except for quick burn. And if you see quick burn while you're mashing DP, just block the overhead and punish. So I'll just show you like the basic option select you can do. So he's either going to do a drive rush or he's going to do quick burn. Yeah, like that. So you don't have to worry too much about being pressured after this thing. If you don't have an EXDP, if your only reversal is like a super, you can also do that, but that one's a little bit more risky. If Terry like extends the drive rush, he can use the super freeze to react. So because I did like a delayed drive rush here and didn't commit to a follow-up, I can still blow through your level 1. So there is a little bit more of a mind game here. But you can still pretty reliably interrupt this with supers. You just got to be a little bit more careful. But EXDPs are almost guaranteed. Alright, the next target combo I want to talk about is this one. So this is stand medium punch, stand heavy punch. And this is definitely one of the big knowledge checks that I've been seeing people getting caught out by. So this target combo looks like it should be super unsafe. It has like this big swing on the follow-up. You feel like when you block this that Terry must be like, I don't know, -10, -15, something like that. But as you can see there, it does a huge amount of pushback and it's actually only -5 on block. This is kind of a cheap little test. And what happens a lot is people try and take their turn back without knowing about the pushback. They whiff a button and they get punish counted. It sets up like a spacing trap. So like, this happens a lot. I've seen this happen about 1,000,000 times. That. People press a medium afterwards. And they get spacing trapped into like a punish counter stand heavy kick, something like that. So I would recommend, if you block this normal from like distance, where it's basically always safe, make sure you're pressing like a longer normal. Something like Terry's stand medium kick probably works quite well. And that'll interrupt me trying to do a spacing trap like that. Oh yeah, also it is -5, as I said, so it is technically punishable, but generally only characters with really good 5-frame lights can punish it. Yeah, it is punishable like point blank. But as long as it's spaced a little bit, it's safe. So that's most of the important normals to go over. So let's move on to I think the things that are causing even more problems for people. Terry's special moves. We're going to start out with Terry's light fireball. This thing. So if you guys don't know, Terry's light punch fireball is actually way more punishable than most fireballs in the game because it travels across the ground rather than in the air. And that means that a ton of moves which like elevate your character off the ground can just go straight over and punish this thing. So like, I'll show a couple of examples. Yeah, so like Honda, for example, can just fly straight over it with headbutt. I think Blanka can do Blanka Ball. Try it with your own characters. A lot of characters have like ways of going over this thing. And it's not just specials either, I should add. There's also a lot of normals in this game, which like hop you off the ground slightly, which can be very good for punishing Terry's fireball. So for example, like Ryu's forward heavy kick, this thing will also go over the fireball. Like that. But yeah, I'd recommend doing some experimentation with your own characters. There's a surprising amount of things that can go over this. So, before you say it, be careful with this though, because I did specify light punch fireball. So Terry has a medium punch fireball, which looks very similar to his light punch fireball. The main difference is that his medium punch fireball dissipates after traveling a certain distance, and this thing does actually have a high vertical hitbox. So I can't just hop over this thing for free. The medium punch is much better at stopping this approach, but the price you pay is that it doesn't go very far. So how do we account for both of these fireballs? You're probably wondering. What we can do is we can actually do a parry drive rush option select, which will cover for both different fireball types. And what you can do is if you just sit at about like this distance right here, if you see the fireball come out, you can just parry, and then after a slight delay, do a drive rush. And what will happen is you'll either parry the fireball if it's the light one. Yeah, and if it's the medium one, you'll get a drive rush. The timing can be a little bit finicky, but it's worth learning this technique. It doesn't necessarily give you a punish, I should point that out, but it can be a way to like approach Terry and get in fairly low risk. You might not get a punish counter on the medium fireball, but you might still get like plus frames. Like that was +5 right there. Yeah, it varies a little bit but in usefulness based on how fast your drive rush is. Obviously, if you've got a horribly slow drive rush, that's not going to be very useful. Like Ryu's isn't the best to demonstrate this, but the faster your drive rush is, the more useful that is. So that was the light and medium fireball. We're going to cover heavy fireball next, which is a completely different beast. But Terry's heavy fireball is this, round wave. It doesn't travel anywhere. It's not like a normal fireball. It just spawns like an explosion in front of him. So this isn't used as a zoning tool. This move is a pressure / Oki tool because on block, this one is +5. This is stupid amounts of plus. There aren't many meterless specials in this game which are +5. But round wave is one of them. So outside of like combos, this is mostly used as a meaty after corner knockdowns because it's very plus, and because it's a projectile, that means it's also immune to level 1 supers. So like, for example, I might do something like that. So that's +5 on block. And if my opponent tries to wake up level 1, they just get punish counted. So as a meaty, it's pretty good. It covers a lot of options. But it does also have a lot of downsides as well. Like, it's not just an autopilot, like, safe way to give yourself plus frames. So the first way to counter this is actually just to react. I know that sounds maybe strange, but round wave has 29 frames of startup. So if your character has, like, an invincible reversal, it's actually very easy to just react to the round wave startup and then EX reversal out. So like, for example, I'm going to set up 2 recordings here. Okay, so I've got 2 recordings. One where I do an uppercut into a throw, and one where I do uppercut into meaty round wave. like that. And if I've turned both of these recordings on, you can actually just react to this. Saw the round wave that time. Let's do it again. Saw the walk up. Tech the throw. Saw the round wave. This thing is very slow. Like, if your reactions are on point, you've got to pay attention to Terry's animations. But even with my old man reactions, this is actually extremely easy to blow out of with a reversal. So if you don't have a reversal, I know you're all yelling right now, I don't play a character with that with a DP. You can also perfect parry this thing. And what's interesting about round wave is Capcom have actually like made this move like easier than usual to perfect parry. Do you remember how a minute ago I said that round wave was a projectile? Well, it's a very weird projectile. It's like a projectile strike hybrid. Because if you notice right there, even though I perfect parried, I actually got the slowdown animation, which doesn't usually happen with projectiles. That's usually a strike only thing. So like, round wave is a weird hybrid of a strike and a projectile. But yeah, if you perfect parry this thing, which is actually pretty easy to do on reaction, it will give you the slowdown into a full combo. Just perfect parry. Honestly, if you grind it out, it's pretty reactable to perfect parry. Like, I'm hitting it fairly consistently with 30 seconds of practice. You know, it's pretty doable. No, you can't DI this thing. If you DI, Terry will recover first. Oh, one last thing about round wave before we move on. So that I've covered most of its use in like wake up scenarios. I should also mention that round wave is always interruptible when cancelled into from any normal. So for example, like anytime I do something like this, you can always interrupt. Even if I do a drive rush, like even if I give myself drive rush advantage into a heavy, into round wave, it is never a frame trap. So yeah, he can always jab interrupt even with the drive rush. All right, up next we're gonna talk about Burn Knuckle. This thing right here. So this move is like a fast horizontal approach option. It covers a lot of ground. The medium punch version goes like a little bit over half screen, and the heavy version goes nearly full screen. So if you do this move up close, it's super punishable. It's -6 and -8. But the further away you get, the more safe this becomes. And if you do it at the absolute tip, it actually becomes plus. So for example, that was +1. Even the heavy version. So a lot of people have asked me, like, how the hell do I know if I can take my turn after this thing or not? Thankfully, Capcom did think of that. They did plan ahead for this. So if you don't already know, Burn Knuckle has a special visual effect to let you know if it's plus or not. So if you see when I land it from this distance, the whole screen shakes a little bit. There's like a slight screen shake effect, and that lets you know that it's plus on block. So if you block this thing and there's like a screen shake, it's plus. If there's no screen shake like this, it just hits normally, this is your way of knowing that it's minus or punishable. Yeah, there's a couple of normals in the game that work like this already. I think Luke's stand heavy kick does it. I think Dalsim's slide does it as well this season. So I would recommend, if you guys haven't got the awareness to identify that animation, just jump into training mode for a little bit with Terry and just do Burn Knuckles until you familiarize yourself with that screen shake animation, because that is a really important like visual indicator you need to familiarize yourself with. Yeah, I mean, it's a very subtle effect. It took me a little while to notice it, but once you notice it, you can't unnotice it. So if you're getting harassed by this move, so what you can do, if you're at a range where this thing would normally be plus on block, is just bulldog forward slightly and then block. So just take a short step forward and then down back, and that'll make this go from being, say, like +1 on block to -3. Just that tiny little step forward can make a big difference to the frame advantage. So walk up block, very useful against Terry. In that situation, it was even -4, so I could have punished that like that. If you want to preemptively punish this thing as well, like if you know it's coming as more of a read, obviously you can also neutral jump. That's a good option. You can DI. That works too. But both of these things have to be done early. You can't late DI this thing, because as you can see there, it's not guaranteed. He could have DI'd back there, so this is more of a read than anything else. So that's everything I wanted to cover with Burn Knuckle. Up next, we got Power Charge, which is this thing, quarter circle forward kick. Not much to say about this one. I just added it to the list because it's part of his kit. This is a combo tool 99% of the time. The only thing to know is that this thing is always punishable on block from every single range. So it looks like the kind of special that like might become safe if it hits super late like that. But actually, as you can see there, it's -5. Like point blank, -9. Max range, still -5, -6. So if you ever block this move, you can always punish it. All versions of it as well, light, medium, and heavy, are all super unsafe. Up next, we got Quick Burn. This is quarter circle back light punch. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but just to be clear how this thing works, this is kind of a gimmick move. I think this thing's gonna fall off super hard as people get used to fighting Terry. But it's very annoying to deal with like week 1 where, you know, no one has the muscle memory for it. So this thing is a 2-hit move, but the gimmick is that the second hit is an overhead. So if you're crouch blocking, you will get opened up by the second hit. Like that. But because the first hit is not an overhead, once you get used to seeing this animation, you should be blocking it every single time. It's like an overhead that tells you it's going to be an overhead. It's really telegraphed. And if you do block it, both versions of this move, both the regular and the EX, are both -5 on block. Every character in the game should be punishing this. You can punish with lights. You can punish with a throw. Grapplers can punish with SPD. Casual 3.8k-ish punish. Ken and Cammy can punish with mediums because they've got 5-frame mediums for whatever reason. Jamie can punish with a heavy. So yeah, go for your best 5-frame punish. Okay, moving on. Next special, I think this is the last special on my list. Yeah, Crack Shoot. Quarter circle back kick. This thing. So Terry players like to throw this out in neutral sometimes because this thing can hop over lows and it can also go over fireballs. So it's a move that you'll see just get sort of thrown out sometimes. It's fairly low risk because every single version of Crack Shoot is safe on block. -3, -3. I think this is -1. Yep. And that's -2. So anytime you block Crack Shoot, you do lose your turn. Or the opponent, it's the opponent's turn afterwards. Just so you guys know. Just on Crack Shoot real quick, I want to talk about Terry's burnout loop as well. I talked about this a little bit already in my previous video, but Terry has a pretty nasty burnout loop using Crack Shoot. In burnout, Crack Shoot does become plus on block, as you can see there, +1. And he can do this loop where you do alternate between medium Crack Shoot and EX Crack Shoot. And whether or not you can interrupt this string is entirely dependent on whether or not your character has a move that's frame 1 air invincible. So half the cast has no answer to this string. But if you do have an air invincible move, like a DP for example, then you can interrupt this. Like that. So anytime you see the Crack Shoot come out, if your character has a decent DP, you can break out of this thing. So I think those are the main moves I think you need to be aware of. Hopefully this was useful so you don't get caught out by Terry's gimmicks and his knowledge checks and stuff. If you found it useful, please hit that subscribe button. And I will see you guys all in the next video.